They say that in the kingdom of Benin, words were once considered more sacred than gold. A man's tongue could build empires or bury generations. My grandfather used to tell me that the ancestors measured a person not by the size of their compound, but by the weight of their silence. He would say, "Child, the loudest voice in the room is often the emptiest vessel." I didn't understand him then. I was young, hungry for validation, desperate to be seen. My name is Chidi, and I was born with a gift that became my curse. I could talk my way into anything and out of everything. In the village of Ogu, where I grew up, people said I had the tongue of Ekwensu, the trickster spirit who could convince the sun to set at noon. Teachers loved me because I could recite lessons with theatrical flair. Market women trusted me because I knew exactly which proverbs to quote when negotiating prices. Even the chief would call me to his compound to settle disputes, because I could weave arguments so beautifully that both parties would walk away believing they had won. But there was a darkness growing inside all that eloquence. I wasn't speaking truth, I was performing it. Every conversation became a stage where I had to be the star. I would interrupt elders mid-sentence because I believed my interpretation was more important than their wisdom. I would fabricate stories to make myself sound more interesting, more traveled, more enlightened than I actually was. When my younger brother, Obina, would try to share his accomplishments, I would hijack the conversation and make it about my own achievements. The breaking point came during the festival of the New Yam. The entire village gathered under the great Iroko tree for the storytelling ceremony, where the oldest among us would share the history of our people. This year, it was Elder Namdi's turn, a man who had lived through colonization, war, and independence. He had stories that could make the stones weep. But I couldn't let him have that moment alone. As he spoke about the night the white men came with their guns and their gods, I interrupted. I added my own commentary, my own interpretations, my own dramatic flair. I thought I was helping. I thought I was making the story better. The crowd was laughing at my jokes, applauding my wit. I felt alive, powerful, necessary. Then I saw Elder Namdi's face. He had stopped speaking. His eyes were wet, not with tears of sadness, but with something deeper, disappointment mixed with pity. He looked at me the way you look at a fruit that has rotted before ripening. Without a word, he rose from his stool and walked away from the gathering. The crowd fell silent. My mother covered her face with her wrapper in shame. That night, I couldn't sleep. The silence in my room felt like judgment. I tried to justify myself. I was just being engaging, just adding value, just being myself. But there was a voice in my head, quieter than all my usual noise, asking a question I couldn't escape. When was the last time you listened more than you spoke? The answer terrified me. I couldn't remember. The old folktales speak of a creature called the mouth that eats itself, a spirit so consumed with speaking that it eventually devours its own tongue, then its teeth, then its entire face, until nothing remains but an empty hole where a person used to be. I was becoming that creature. My constant need to fill every silence, to dominate every conversation, to prove my worth through words was slowly erasing the person I actually was beneath all the performance. I went to Elder Namdi's compound the next morning. I brought kola nuts, as is our custom when seeking forgiveness. He was sitting on his veranda, carving a walking stick from a piece of mahogany. He didn't look up when I arrived. "Elder," I began, and then stopped. For the first time in my life, I didn't know what to say. Every apology I had rehearsed sounded hollow, performative, like another act in my endless theater. He continued carving for what felt like an eternity. Then, finally, he spoke. "Chidi, do you know why the ancestors gave us 2 ears but only 1 mouth?" I shook my head. "Because we are meant to listen twice as much as we speak. But you, my son, you have reversed the design. You have turned your ears into decorations and your mouth into a weapon. You talk so much about truth that you have forgotten what truth sounds like when it comes from someone else's lips." His words hit me like stones. I wanted to defend myself, to explain, to argue. But something inside me finally broke open. The dam of my ego cracked, and what poured out wasn't words, it was tears. I wept there on his veranda, mourning all the moments I had stolen from others with my incessant need to be heard. Elder Namdi put down his carving tools and placed his weathered hand on my head. "The wisest man in the village is not the one who speaks the most," he said softly. "It is the one who knows when his silence will say more than his words ever could." That was the moment everything changed. I began the hard work of unlearning my addiction to my own voice. I started forcing myself to count to 10 before responding in conversations. I practiced asking questions instead of making statements. When my brother spoke about his new job in the city, I listened, truly listened, without planning my own story to share afterward. It was excruciating at first. The silence felt like suffocation. I would physically bite my tongue to keep from filling every pause with my opinions. But slowly, something miraculous happened. I began to hear things I had never noticed before. The tremor of fear in my mother's voice when she talked about her health. The pride in my father's tone when he spoke about the farm, even though I had always dismissed farming as beneath my ambitions. The wisdom in my friend's advice that I had always talked over with my own supposedly superior insights. The less I spoke, the more I understood. And the more I understood, the less I needed to prove. A year later, during the next New Yam festival, Elder Namdi told his story again. This time, I sat in the back of the crowd with my mouth closed and my ears open. I didn't interrupt. I didn't add commentary. I didn't try to make it about me. I just listened. And in that listening, I heard my people's history for the first time. I heard the pain Elder Namdi had carried for decades. I heard the resilience that had kept our village alive through impossible odds. I heard truths that my own voice had been drowning out for years. When he finished, the crowd sat in reverent silence. And in that silence, I finally found my true voice, not the performative one that demanded attention, but the authentic one that earned respect through knowing when to speak and when to simply bear witness to someone else's truth. The elders were right. The tongue is a powerful tool. But like fire, it can either light the way or burn everything to ash. I had spent years setting fires with my words, consuming attention like oxygen, leaving nothing but smoke and confusion in my wake. Now I understand, true power lies not in filling every silence, but in creating space for others to be heard. A man who speaks constantly may command a room, but a man who listens deeply will change the world. The difference between noise and wisdom is knowing that sometimes, the most important thing you can say is nothing at all. Don't forget to like and subscribe on this channel for more interesting stories like this. See you next time.